In section 10.7, we're going to do operations in scientific notation. Basically, we're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with scientific notation. While this may seem easy, it isn't. This can get a little tricky, so you got to pay attention. Any questions you have, keep until Monday, and we'll go over Monday in class. So let's start with our first operations, adding and subtracting. So example number 1. We have the expression 4.6 times 10 to the third plus 8.72 times 10 to the third. We have to find the sum, so we add them together. Here's the easy part. The first thing you have to do, step 1, is you have to look at your powers. Are your powers, do you have the same power of 10? You do. Both of them are to the third power. If the powers are the same, all you do are add the factors. That's it. If the powers are the same, add the factors. They are. So all I do is this. All you do is just add the two numbers together. 4 6/10 plus 8 72/100. So 4.6 plus 8.72, that gives you 13.32 times 10 to the third. However, you are not done. Look at this. What is wrong with 13.32 times 10 to the third? This number right here is not between 1 and 10. So you have to make it between 1 and 10. So we're going to move the decimal, and we're going to get 1.332. Now, 1.332 times. Now, we moved it 1. So now think about it this way. Here I had a 3, so I had to go 1, 2, 3. But now I backed it up 1. So now I have to go another 1 on top of that. So this is going to change from 10 to the third to 10 to the fourth. 1.332 times 10 to the fourth. Example number 2. 3.5 times 10 to the negative 2 minus 6.6 times 10 to the negative 3. Red flag. That power and that power are not the same. You have to make them the same. So, I am going to make, it doesn't matter what if you make them both negative 3 or both negative 2, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make them both negative 2. So the first one is not going to change. All right, so we need to change this to 10 to the negative 2. Now this is where you got to use your brain. Honestly, you just got to think about what you're doing here. So what I'm doing is, on here, this says negative 3. So I would have had to move it 3 spaces this way. But now it's only negative 2. So you just move it 1 space. And so now it's 0.66. And I know that's not in scientific notation, but that's okay. So I moved it 1 space already to the left because it's negative 3. I moved it 1 space. So now that's how I got my negative 2, because I now have only negative 2 spaces, 2 more spaces to go. So now you subtract these two numbers. 3.5 minus 0.66 times 10 to the negative 2. So if you subtract that, 3.5 minus 0.66, you get 2.84 times 10 to the negative 2. That is your answer, because my factor is between 1 and 10. It's greater than 1 or equal to 1 and less than 10. When you're going to find the product, when you're going to multiply, it's actually a little easier. When you multiply, these powers don't have to be the same. Not at all. All you do is multiply the 3 and the 5. That's it. Take the 3 and the 5, multiply them together. You get 15 times. Now, here's your trick. Times 10, you add the powers. Here you have a negative 5, here you have a negative 2. Negative 5 plus a negative 2 gives you negative 7. Is that your answer? No. Look at this. What's wrong with the 15? 15 is bigger than 10, therefore it is not in scientific notation. So what you have to do is make it 1.5 times, now we had 10 to the negative 7. My decimal was right here. Remember, negative 7 would go this way. I already moved it one space back to get the 1.5. So because I already moved it one space, I only have 6 more to go, so it would be 10 to the negative 6. So your answer would be 1.5 times 10 to the negative 6. Example number 4, we're going to do the same thing. Multiply. Multiply 2 times 6, 12. Times. Add your powers. It'd be 10 to the negative 7. 12 is not between 1 and 10, so I have to move my decimal, 1.2 times 10. Well, because I took my decimal, which was right here, and I already moved it one space to get the 1.2, I only have 6 more to go, so it'd be negative 6. So my answer would be 1.2 times 10 to the negative 6. The last operation is dividing. Find the quotient you are dividing. Step 1. Once again, it's just the same thing. Divide your factors. So we take 1.5 divided by 6. That's going to give me 2500ths or 0.25 times. Now, when you multiply, you added the exponents. When you divide, you subtract. So here's what we're going to do. We take the negative 8 and we subtract the bottom, 7. Negative 8 minus 7 gives me 10 to the negative 15th. Now, we don't want that. We can't have this. Number is not between 1 and 10. So we're going to move it. 2.5 times 10. So, where did I move this decimal? This decimal moved 1 to the right. But wait a minute. 1 to the right. This is where you got to honestly just think. This is negative 15. Negative 15 means from this point, this decimal in blue, I would have to go 15 spaces to the left. But now I backed it up 1. So now you're going to have to go 1 extra space to get to the same spot. So you have to then go 1 more space. So 10 to the negative 16th would be my power. 2.5 times 10 to the negative 16th. Let's do another example like that. 1.5 times 10 to the negative 3rd divided by 7.5 times 10 to the negative 2. We're dividing. So we're going to take 1.5 divided by 7.5. That gives me 0.2 times 10. Now we're dividing, so we subtract the powers. We take negative 3 minus negative 2. That gives me negative 3 plus 2, which gives me a power of negative 1. This is not in scientific notation because this number is not from 1 to less than 10. So we're going to move the decimal over 1 to make that a 2 times 10. Now, got to look at your power here. Your power was negative 1. So I would have moved it over negative 1. But now my decimal is right here. So now I'd have to move it over 2 spaces to the left to get to the same spot. So it'd be 2 times 10 to the negative 2. The last example. The diameter of the sun is 1,400,000 kilometers. The diameter of the earth is 1.28 times 10 to the 4th kilometers. How many times greater is the diameter of the sun than the earth? So we have to divide. You have 2 options. If you just want to change the earth into a regular number and divide it, you can. Like you just take the decimal, move it 4 to the right, divide them, you can do that. But I'm going to change the sun to scientific notation. So I'm going to move my decimal right here between 1 and 4, so 1.4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sun is bigger, so 1.4 times 10 to the 6th divided by 1.28 times 10 to the 4th. I divide my factors. 1.4 divided by 1.28. That gives me approximately 1.09375 times 10. Subtract my powers. 6 minus 4 gives me 2. This number right here is between 1 and 10, so I'm good. My answer is 1.09375 times 10 to the second power.